Okay, I'm going to explain how to install Anytype in Docker and how to make it accessible from outside of your home network. So for starters, you have to go to the GitHub page called Anysync Docker Compose, and that has the scripts that you're going to need to run the installation. It turns out it's not really that simple. This part's simple, but as far as how to make it work after that, it was confusing. I didn't find really too much information anywhere. It was a lot of hunting around. But now that I've gone through it, I think I can put it together in a way that's pretty easy to understand so that anybody can do it. Anytype generates 14 containers, 10 of which stay running and 4 of which fire up and then exit when it's built. Originally, I thought that meant that there was an error or something, but then I saw one of the videos created by the developers and the same thing happened to them. So I figured, okay, that's part of the setup. That's how it goes. So after the Docker containers are running, you'll also need the desktop client. And if you already have the desktop client running, you'll have to log out. Okay. So the desktop client needs to be on the starting default screen, which we will get to in a little while. So the first thing you want to do, go onto your server, which is running Docker. You got to have Docker running in order for this to work. And you need to make sure you're in the right directory where you want Anytype installed, and create a new folder. And then cd into that. And now you're in the new folder. And all you need to do is first clone the repository. So I copied that, shift insert to paste, and it has downloaded that compose file, and it creates that directory, Anysync Docker Compose directory. And I will cd into that, shift insert to paste. Okay, so the configuration, really this is the only thing you gotta think about too much here. What you're doing is you're telling it where the Docker container is running. Now, if you're doing this if you only want it accessible inside your network, then you're going to want to put the IP address that is running Docker. So if you have a server, you'll put that server name in. If you wanted it accessible from outside of your network, then you need to put in your domain name that maps to your home network. If you're used to using subdomains to map to a particular port, don't do that. Just do the domain name. Anytype will direct itself to the right port. That's how all of the connections are created internally from what I've seen. It'll do the domain name and colon and a port number. You can't tell it to not use a port number. I'm sure there's a way, but I didn't see it. So what you do here is put the server address in, like I said, or it's going to be domainname.com, whatever that happens to be for you. I will do that. That is my server's IP address. And that just wrote something to an env override file. And it's going to check there when it makes the Docker containers. And then you do make start. It will use that compose file and get everything it wants, and it's going to run the installation here. Takes a little bit of time. It's not too bad. And you can see there's two at the top there that have already exited. So when you see that running, like if you're looking at Portainer or something and you see all these stopped containers, that's okay. That's what it does. And that's that. So now that that's running, we can confirm that it's running. It's called Anysync. And here's my Docker containers. Where's the... Yeah, so here's the uptime. So you can see it, 42 seconds. So that's running. So here there is going to be... It's in the Etsy folder. There's going to be... Okay, see that last file, client.yml. So that's the file that contains all of our configuration settings that you're going to have to put into your local client. So you can either use FileZilla and just copy the file, or you can do cat client.yml and it will just display all of the contents to your screen. If you do that, then just highlight and then copy. And I think I'm gonna have to do this off screen here, but I'll just make another create new document. I'm gonna call this client 10.yml. And I can drag this over here. So, okay, so here's the file I just created on my desktop. And all I do is I paste in that text that I just copied from the terminal. And you can see what it does here. It takes the IP address and uses the port number after that. And so that's how all the connections are made. So hit save. You can close that, minimize that. Okay, so then you go into Anysync, into the client on your desktop. And over on the right, you have the gear. Click that. When you look at this the first time, it's going to say network Anytype. That's the default appearance. So if you click that and go to self-hosted, now you get a new option here for uploading a configuration file. So do that. Select the YML file you created. Hit save. You're going to want to make a new vault. Now, when it says that this is your key, you can display it if you want. You can copy this. You know, that's going to be your code to get in there. I'll never use this, so I don't care if it shows here. You don't have to do it. You can get this later in your settings. So if you want to just skip past it, that's probably easier. So set your name, whatever you want to call it. I meant to type test. I think I was one row off. Enter vault. And that right there, that little green icon is exactly what you want. So if you click this here, self-host synced. If you did it wrong, it's going to be a red dot. So that's it. So now everything is running in a connected way. So your client is connected to your server, to your Docker containers. And from there, you'll probably want to set up, maybe use Duplicati or something and back up that Anysync folder to make sure that you've got all your stuff backed up. Now to make this accessible from the outside, you have one more step to do here. So let me get the screenshot of that. Okay, so here's a screenshot of my ASUS router. So you have to go into the WAN section, port forwarding, and then you need to add these ports here. And just to show where I got that from, I'm going to go into the documentation for Anytype, and they have this one spot here, not that, the IP tables, and it tells you the ports. So the TCP port here, so these first 6 are the TCP port, and then these bottom 6 are a UDP port. And so you need to open up those ports on your router. So in port forwarding, you'd add those. And on mine, I don't know if this is universal language or just ASUS, but you can do a range by doing 1001:1006, and that does that range. And the protocol is TCP. Internal address would be whatever your server IP address is. And then add another row, 1011:1016, same internal IP address, and that protocol is UDP. Add that to your router, and then it's going to be open to connections made on those ports. So then when you're outside of your network and you connect to your domain name, 1001, it's going to route it to the correct place. And I would say that sums up everything. That's pretty much the whole story. That's how you set up Anytype running in a Docker container.